Yeah, g'day YouTubers, Tinker O'Toole again here with another video. Today we're going to do a product review. Brought myself a Stihl MS500i. Awesome saw. Only option that I did was put a longer bar on it, a 25-inch bar rather than a 20-inch bar. You can actually go up to 36-inch bar on these. Better off using a skip chain if you put a 36-inch bar on it. Reasonably powerful saw. It's 79.2 cc, so it's 5 kilowatts, and that's 6.7 horsepower. The actual head weight is 6.4 kilo. It's got a decomp valve on it, so makes it easy to start. It's only revs up to a maximum of 10,000 RPM. It has a pressure sensor, a temperature sensor. It will auto calibrate as well. Now, if you was to take this up into the mountains, which was a couple of thousand feet higher, and it wasn't running properly, what you do, the procedure is, there's two procedures that Stihl recommend. They recommend to cut about 5 logs, turn it off, and turn it back on. That's one way. Another way to recalibrate it is that you just let it sit and let it idle for about 10 minutes. So it depends whether you want to sit and let it idle or whether you want to cut some logs to let it calibrate. Either way, that's how you calibrate them. So it's going to measure temperature and pressure and adjust. Now, the other thing is it's actually got the highest kilogram rating per kilowatt, which is 1.24 kilograms for kilowatt of power. So that is a fantastic rating. Interesting enough, if you compare it to the MS660, which is 91.6 cc's, it weighs 7 kilograms, so it's another kilogram heavier. It's 5.2 kilowatts, which is slightly bigger, and it produces 6.8 horsepower, which is another 100 RPM, and it revs at 13,000 as opposed to 10,000 for the MS500i. So the MS500i revs considerably lower. It probably just develops more bottom end torque, I would say. So that's the way it is. I'd prefer a saw that if it revs slightly lower. That way it's not going to run at really high PM and get too hot. So very interesting saw. If you compare it to the MS311 at the back, the MS311 is 3 kilowatts, which is 4.2 horsepower. It revs to 13,000 RPM, and its weight, at 6.2 kilo, it's only 200 grams lighter than this one, and this one's got about another 60% more power. So this is an absolute beast of a saw for how for 80 cc saw to produce that amount of power, which is 6.7 horsepower, 5 kilowatts. That's pretty good. Now to start, it's pretty straightforward. We'll just turn it around. What it actually has got, it's got a primer bulb at the back. And it states in the manual, let's see if we can zoom in there, that you press the primer bulb about 8 times to start it. So that's the primer bulb down the bottom. Now when you start the saw, there's only one way to stop it. You just press the kill switch, the stop button. That's it. So to start the saw, you've got a decomp valve up the top here. We'll just have a look. There's a decomp valve. Push it in and press the primer bulb 8 times. That's 8 times. Now, all that primer bulb does is put enough fuel in for it to start up and return any excess fuel to the back of the tank. So you could push that forever and it's not going to do any damage or make it harder to start. Now, if everything goes all right, I should be able to pull that one time and it should start. So we'll just get it down here, a little bit out of the way where you can see. And hopefully it starts first pop. That throttle response is unbelievable. It's got the fastest throttle response. It accelerates from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in a quarter of a second. You can feel it. You know when you hold a chainsaw and when you blip it, you can feel the chainsaw move? This just accelerates so fast and so quick. So yeah, unbelievable. Fantastic saw. For those that are thinking of getting one, the features on it are the only negative that I've been hearing, and I won't be able to sort of confirm that until I've had it for a while. They sort of suggesting that they're a little bit thirsty on fuel, but remember it is a bigger saw, so a bigger saw is definitely going to use more fuel than a smaller saw. I think they're sort of suggesting that it uses about 2.3 litres consistently sawing for an hour. So that's not that bad, really. And yeah, I would never saw consistently for an hour. I'd be stop starting. So yeah. Anyway, that's the saw. It's a brilliant saw. It starts very easily, and it's supposed to start like that all the time. That's the whole idea of the bulb, because it doesn't have an electronic pump on it. It has a different system, so when you prime it, it prepares it to start, and in most cases it'll start first pull. If you prime it slow, don't prime it real fast, just take your time, pushing it in and out nice and slow, and every time that I've started it, it started first kick, so can't complain about that. The only other thing is that, yes, you can put a 36-inch bar on it. A lot of people do. It'll pull a 36-inch bar, but if you do put a 36-inch bar or even a 30-inch bar on it, I would suggest using a skip chain for that purpose only. It is good to see that it came out with double dogs on it. I don't know whether they bring them out in every country like that. The only other thing that I'll mention, that if you need to change a spark plug, you can put your get a screwdriver and just undo that there, and that cover comes off. And the air filter's really good to get to. It's just a matter of twisting that, pulling that. Air filter comes off like that, and it's typically looks like a car type air filter. There is I've seen them on eBay and a few other things where you put a bit of foam around here, and that's said to help as well. So there are different filters out there on the market, but yeah, I don't know yet. I'm not going to comment and say how good they are, because with a saw this expensive, I think I'd rather stick with Still's recommendation than use some cheap aftermarket filter. So yeah, I think I would stick with that. So we will do a review down the track in about 6 months. I've only cut a few bits of timber with this, and all as I can say is that it really does cut through much faster. If I use the Farm Boss, this cuts through timber really good, but this is so much faster. It is unbelievable. It is a great saw, but it is a professional saw, although I will only be using it for firewood, and it'll just make my life a lot easier through easy starting. Sometimes I get sick of using these type of saws with a carburettor, because you've got to put it on choke, pull it a couple of times. Sometimes the saws can be a little bit temperamental in colder weather, and you might have to pull it 6 or 7 times. Once they start, they're okay, but if you only got to pull this once or twice, that's a plus as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, anyway, it's a thumbs up for me. I've got no complaints at this point in time whatsoever. I think I will stick with the light bars. They do feel about 30% lighter, and that makes the saw feel good as well. So thumbs up for me. Yeah, great saw still.